Imagine being stranded in a forest where the trees are frozen solid and the wind cuts like a knife. Your modern multi-tool just snapped. You're in trouble. But a Viking wouldn't be. Why? Because strapped to his belt is the ultimate survival tool, the hand axe. This wasn't just a weapon of war, it was the key to life. 80% of Viking graves contain one proving it was more essential than a sword. Balanced perfectly to fell a tree, butcher a deer, or split a skull, the bearded axe featured a hooked blade that allowed a user to choke up on the handle for delicate carving or pull a shield out of an enemy's hand. The genius was in the steel. Vikings didn't just pour metal into a mold. They harvested bog iron from swamps, refining it into blades that could hold an edge through a brutal Scandinavian winter. But a sharp axe is useless without a way to keep it that way. That's why no Viking left home without the humble whetstone. A dull blade meant you exerted more energy to cut wood, which meant you sweated, which in sub-zero temperatures meant you died. These small slate or sandstone blocks worn around the neck like jewelry were the difference between a clean cut and a slip that could sever an artery. But sometimes you need finesse, not brute force. You need a tool that can skin a seal or carve a rune. For that, the Vikings had a blade so effective that modern bushcrafters still copy it today. Part 2. Enter the seax. This single-edged knife was so iconic that the Saxons were named after it. Ranging from small utility blades to sword-sized monsters, the seax was unique because of its broken back shape, a thick angled spine that allowed the user to apply immense thumb pressure for precise cutting. Unlike a double-edged sword, the thick spine meant you could baton it through firewood without breaking the blade. It was the original survival knife, and the Vikings wore it horizontally or upside down on their belts. Why speed? In a sudden ambush or a bear attack, you could draw and strike in one fluid motion. Many seaxes were personalized with intricate silver inlays or runic inscriptions like "I belong to Thor," turning a tool into a talisman. But even the best steel can't hold a ship together. When planks cracked or spear shafts snapped, the Vikings didn't have epoxy. They had something better: birch tar. By slow roasting birch bark in oxygen-free pits, they extracted a sticky black resin. They mixed this with charcoal dust and crushed bone to create a thermoplastic adhesive that was waterproof, insect repellent, and stronger than wood itself. They used this Viking superglue to haft axes, seal hulls, and attach arrowheads. A warrior would carry a lump of it, heating it by the fire to make repairs on the fly. It was chemistry born of desperation. But fixing your gear is only half the battle. To survive the night, you need fire. And starting a fire in a rainstorm with wet wood is nearly impossible unless you know the secret of the fire mushroom. Part 3. The Vikings didn't carry lighters. They carried Amadou processed tinder fungus. They would harvest the horsehoof fungus from birch trees, boil it in lye made from wood ash, and pound it into a felt-like material. This substance had a miraculous property. It could catch the tiniest spark from a flint and steel and hold a smoldering ember for days. They would pack a glowing coal into a hollow goat horn filled with this fungus, sealing it with beeswax. This fire horn allowed them to transport fire from one campsite to another or even across the ocean. Imagine the confidence of knowing that no matter how wet the world got, you had a live coal on your hip ready to roar into a campfire in seconds. It was a survival hack that allowed them to colonize the frozen North Atlantic. But once you have fire and tools, you need shelter. And to build a long ship or a house, you need to shape timber with surgical precision. For that, they used the draw knife. This two-handled blade was pulled toward the user, shaving off ribbons of wood to shape planks, masts, and tool handles. It required immense upper body strength and fine motor control. A slip could mean slicing your own femoral artery. But in skilled hands, it could turn a rough log into a sleek ship plank that could cut through the waves. It was the tool that built the Viking Age. Part 4, behind every great axe and every sturdy nail, was the bellows. While we think of blacksmithing as an industrial job for Vikings, it was a survival skill. Portable bellows made of oxhide and wood allowed them to set up a forge on a beach to repair a damaged ship. They could generate temperatures of over 1,200 degrees Celsius, 2,190 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to weld iron. Accompanied by specialized tongs, often stamped with the maker's mark, these tools allowed them to reshape reality. If a sword bent in battle, they fixed it. If they needed nails for a coffin or a keel, they made them. This self-reliance is the core of survivalism. But you can't eat iron. To feed a crew on the move, you need to harvest protein from the sea. And the Vikings had a piece of tackle that hooked the world. The Viking fishhook wasn't just a bent nail. It was a masterpiece of cold-forged iron shaped to perfection. They had specific hooks for everything from river trout to deep-sea halibut. Archaeologists have found hooks still sharp after a millennium in the mud. A single Viking ship might carry hundreds of these because losing your tackle meant starving. They even used line made from horsehair or twisted flax strong enough to haul in a 50-pound cod. Part 5, when the sun set in winter, the world went black. To keep working mending nets and planning raids, the Vikings needed light. They didn't have batteries, they had the rawhide lantern. By stretching translucent scraped cowhide over a wooden frame, they created a windproof housing for a simple oil lamp. Inside, a bowl of rendered seal fat or fish oil burned with a moss wick. The hide diffused the light, creating a soft, warm glow that didn't ruin their night vision, but allowed them to see their work. These lanterns were safe enough to use on a rocking ship where an open torch would be a disaster. They were efficient, durable, and fueled by the waste products of their hunt. It was sustainable technology at its finest. But with all these tools, the axe, the CX, the fire horn, the hooks, you need a way to carry them. You can't just stuff them in your pockets. You need a load-bearing system. Enter the Gokstad backpack. When archaeologists excavated the Gokstad ship burial, they found a wooden frame that looked suspiciously modern. It was a backpack frame made of steam-bent ash wood and rawhide lacing. Part 6. This wasn't a sack thrown over the shoulder. It was an ergonomic frame pack designed to distribute heavy loads across the back and hips, technology that wouldn't be reinvented by outdoor companies until the 20th century. The Vikings used it to haul iron or trade goods and camping gear over mountain passes. The rawhide lacing allowed the bag to expand or compress, securing the load, so it didn't shift during a fight or a climb. The straps were stitched with sinew, which shrinks when wet, meaning the pack got tighter and more secure in the rain, a brilliant adaptation to the wet Norse climate. With this pack, a Viking could carry 50 pounds of gear for miles without exhausting himself. It proves that they weren't just brutes. They were hikers, explorers, and logistical geniuses. Part 7, from the chemistry of birch tar to the physics of the bearded axe Viking survival tools, reveal a culture that was deeply in tune with its environment. They didn't fight nature, they hacked it. They turned fungi into batteries, bark into glue, and skin into light. These tools are a reminder that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. A battery dies, but a flint strikes forever. A zipper breaks, but a toggle holds fast. So the next time you're packing your bug-out bag, maybe leave the GPS at home and pack a good axe instead. Part 8, but having the tools is only half the battle. You have to know how to use them when the elements turn against you. The Vikings survived conditions that would kill a modern person in hours. They crossed freezing oceans in open boats and slept in snow without sleeping bags. If you want to know the specific techniques they used to survive the coldest nights of the year without a heater and how they kept their babies alive in sub-zero temperatures, you need to watch this next video. It will change the way you think about cold forever. Click here to see the impossible resilience of the Norsemen.